the constant search for huge amount of data is not the goal of user research or product analytics. Even from a small sample of users, you can get meaningful data.
If we look beyond current methodologies like session replay, usability testing, and traditional analytics, what do you see as the next frontier in understanding users? Maybe AI, or perhaps concern you in how they might transform product decision making?
Yeah, I was expecting the question about AI also.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's PITT interview. I'm thrilled to have you join us in this discussion on how session replay, usability testing, and confidence intervals drive smarter product decisions. We are cutting straight to what actually works in the real world. So, no theoretical frameworks that fail apart in practice, no vague concepts that sound good but don't help you ship better products. Just approaches that help you understand what your users are actually doing, why they are doing it, and how confident you can be in making changes based on those insights. And today I'm joined by Alessio Romito, who wrote two super interesting articles on PITT, the product innovation think tank. PITT is User Pilot's collaborative magazine written by product leaders for product leaders. PITT brings together insights from the front lines of product development, sharing practical knowledge that helps teams build better products. And Alessio has written some thought-provoking pieces on session replay versus usability testing and confidence intervals in product analytics, which we'll be exploring today. So let me bring him on stage. Hey, Alessio, thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me, and it's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak about UX product analytics today with you.
Thanks, Alessio. Before we jump into our questions, would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, sure. I'm working as a lead UX designer, so my main job is trying to decode the user behavior in this moment into the financial sector. So basically, we are working a lot with people that need to invest their money in different financial assets. And I have a previous experience as a product designer, as a UX design specialist. I work, many years also in the no-profit sector before jumping into the profit sector. So I would say that I'm pretty, multidisciplinary person, and also that's also why it explains my passion for data analytics.
Yeah, and you are the perfect person to break this down for us. Okay, thanks so much, Alessio. Let's jump into the questions straight away, if that's okay. In your article, you compare session replay and usability testing. Could you explain how combining these two methods can provide a more comprehensive understanding of user behavior? Like, we want a complete comparison to see how session replay can help us versus how usability testing can help us.
Yeah, sure. I think that sometimes, as analyst or UX designer, UX researcher, we often forget that one of the most important strengths that we have in our hands is data triangulation. No, there is there is never, the perfect research method that is gonna encompass everything that you actually wanna know. No, and this article try to explain in this in this manner how it's important to combine multiple data from multiple sources if it's possible. Then in reality there are budget constraints, time constraints, so it's not always possible to have multiple data from multiple sources. But when you have the opportunity, I mean, the best strategy I think is always look for heterogeneity of data. And session repair usability testing as other research methods have their pros and cons. No, if we start from session replay, I mean, I think that the big advantage of a session replay is to be basically a huge scalable research method. Basically, you can in a short time frame record multiple data analytics from multiple users. As I have highlighted in my article, theoretically speaking, from thousands of users. And the data that you are able to track are pretty similar to what you could potentially track in usability testing. So metric like task completion, so how many users were able to going from A to Z, error rate, the time on task. So when I think, while I mean they provide you with a huge amount of information, well, I mean they lack, some depth. It's basically in answering the question why this is happening. So, for example, in my article, I highlighted the topic of rage clicks. So in the session replay, you can detect the user, for example, clicking in a compulsive way many times on a button, no? And this very likely could potentially highlight that there is a sign of frustration. But you are not able to explain 100% why this is happening. And here you can combine this information with the usability testing, especially moderate usability testing. So sitting close to the user, understanding, asking questions that can basically help you understand why this is happening, why this hesitation, why this frustration is going to complement the information captured in session replay. And then the last thing that also comes into my mind is that this combination can work in multiple stages of product development cycle. So pre-launch of a feature, you collect your information and you get an hint of what you could potentially investigate further. It can work, and then potentially you are going to investigate further through usability testing. In the post-launch of a product, so you tested your product with a prototype to usability testing, then you want to understand how this is working in the real world situation with users, and you keep detecting the user behavior through session replay. So you see how the combination can work throughout the entire product development cycle.
Yeah, so it seems like from what you are saying, that relying only on one method might leave like some gaps in our understanding, but combining both can offer like a fuller picture.
No, that's precisely the question. I think again, many times we are obsessed with framework, no, and this also happen also to me. Many times I'm looking for, I need the perfect tool, I need the perfect framework to do this kind of analysis, no. But then in reality, the real strength that we have as analysts and people working in products, especially today with also the impact of AI and the many tools at our disposal, is combining resources or data from different sources.
Yeah. In your article about the second article about confidence intervals, you explain statistical rigor, but I'm curious, have you seen cases where teams became like paralyzed by overthinking metrics or waiting for perfect confidence levels before making decisions? Is there a point where data driven becomes like data paralyzed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that now that I look back, at the articles, but also at some, some sharing that I got from people over LinkedIn. Maybe a better wording could be being data informed than data driven. To answer your question, in my experience, I never experienced the case when you get paralyzed by looking for data. On the contrary, especially UX or as a researcher, we often struggle to get at least one opportunity to track some data. But let's suppose that this could potentially happen in a product team. I think, the research, the constant search for huge amount of data, is not the goal of user research or product analytics. Rather, I mean, also in my article, I try to highlight how, for example, even from a small sample of user, you can get meaningful data. It's not needed to have every time a huge amount of data. First of all, because it's expensive, and second, because very likely reaching the perfect number, the perfect confidence interval is not the goal of UX designer or product analyst in general. I think that our role is to reduce that margin of error that constantly exists between business need and user needs. On one side, to make the company more confident about the feature that you are gonna launch, and uh, and possibly to launch something that is gonna satisfy the user. So I think it's not the purpose, and also because most of the time we are not fully able to reach the full objectivity in the kind of studies that we are running. So would not make sense to have as a goal, I want to reach the perfect confidence interval.
Yeah, that resonates deeply. I've definitely been in those meetings where we keep saying like let's get more data when like what we mean really by this is like I'm uncomfortable making this decision. So the balance
Yeah.
between intuition and evidence is something I struggle with personally. Imagine how many great product innovations would never have happened if teams waited for like statistical significance. Yet the opposite, making moves based purely on gut feeling can be equally dangerous. So finding that middle ground seems to be as much art as science.
And also, if you allow me, let me add now something that is coming to my mind. Most of the time, we are dealing with humans, with people, and even the perfect data combination, it's still an inferential statistics. It's probability. It's never able to capture the real intention of people. We are dealing with humans, so it's better to have less data but pushing something out and understanding how is working with real people, with real users, get new data in a iterative cycle and refining further. And that's, I think, it's the best strategy.
Yeah, true. In your confidence intervals article, you break down how to interpret statistical data. But I'm curious about like a more philosophical question. Do you think the emphasis on metrics and confidence intervals sometimes creates a false sense of objectivity? Because after all, we choose which metrics to track and which segments to analyze and how to frame the questions in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you are touching another important point, that most of the time the kind of studies that we are running are not fully experimental studies, so we are not able to at the moment, or at my knowledge, to run a studies that has the ability to get the full objectivity that you can theoretically are able to reach in physics or in chemistry. So the one basic reason is that most of the time we are not able to ensure simple randoming of users. So when we select the population and we take a sample of user, it's really difficult to have simple randoming of this sample given that population. That means that you are by result, already reducing the objectivity of your studies. And that there is a point that metrics are selected based on company constraint, time constraint, budget constraint, are also selected given the company culture, because there are companies that are more sensitive to certain kind of metrics, while others are sensitive to other kind of metrics. So this already highlight the fact that it's difficult to reach the full objectivity. And again, I don't think it's really the objective of UX or of a user research. The objective is trying to find those data that are meaningful, that are able to give direction to the team, to the product teams, on how far we are from getting the result that we are aiming to get, and how far we're able to how far we are from satisfying the user needs. So again, objectivity, I think it's a false, it's a false, I know it's a misbelief. No, it's not. Statistical rigor is important when you calculate this data, how you're gonna share this insight with your stakeholders, but should not be, the objective of the user research or product analytics, in my opinion. So that's really, that's not the purpose of doing analysis.
Mhm. Yeah, I've definitely seen how the language of data and statistics can shut down important conversations because it feels so authoritative. The data says becomes the end of the discussion rather than the beginning. So you're right that like there is a human element at every stage, from what we choose to measure to how we interpret results. Perhaps like acknowledging this subjectivity actually leads to more honest product conversations. And measuring task completion or error rates seems like very straightforward. But what about the delight, like emotional connection, the moments that make users fall in love with the product? How do you approach measuring these less tangible aspects of user experience, and do traditional tools like session replay and confidence intervals fall short here?
Yeah, no, that's another great question, and I'm happy that you are asking me this because I think that nowadays, especially in UX, there is a big gap in applying, kind of, data analytics also to the visual design, context of the user experience. Now, we always think that, okay, we can apply metrics or we can apply, data analysis only when we are tracking the usability, no? Side of the usability side of the user experience. But in reality, data analysis, so there are metrics that are able to capture, the emotional reaction, user feelings, also to, let's say, the static value, or basically the feelings that in a user interface or any product is able to basically is able to create in the people mind. For example, there are, especially in the post study questionnaire, there are questionnaire like the emotional metric outcomes that was developed by Lewis, or Super Q questionnaire. So those questionnaire, in reality of psychometric studies, are able to detect how people react to a piece of user interface, to a piece of content that you are putting on the screen. So I think this is equally important. So task completion, error rate, time on task are metrics that pertaining to usability. But data analytics is, equally important and applicable in measuring people reaction. Of course, here we come back to the topic of objectivity. When we speak about user feelings, user emotion, we are dealing with humans, no? And there is always, that subjectivity level that you should take into account when you are sharing your data to your stakeholders. So you can track it, you can measure it, but still we are speaking about emotions. So emotions are, dealing with values, are dealing with family heritage. I make you an example. No, in one of my recent project, I found myself, talking about, why some people are not investing money in financial assets. No, even though they have a huge wealth. We discovered, for example, that in reality, I mean, there is a family heritage or situation that happens in the past that are preventing people to be willing to invest their money. So here you can track it, you can measure it, maybe until a certain point, because you are never able to grasp, everything that is happening in the people's lives. But still, you have tools at to your disposal, and this can be applicable equally to what we usually do for task completion, time on task, and so on.
Yeah, this strikes at the heart of what makes product work both challenging and beautiful. the metrics that are easiest to measure aren't always the ones that matter the most. So, from my experience, also, I worked in a company where all the conventional metrics looked great, low bounce rates, good task completion, yet users weren't forming this emotional connection with the product. So those intangible qualities often like emerge from qualitative insights that can't be easily quantified, let's say.
Yeah, cannot be easily quantified, but it can, if we start, that's something that is not really happening. I am speaking at least about UX, no? Usually it happens to me that when we speak about visual design, we go to multiple loops of design reviews with multiple people. Every person has a different opinion about that specific design because it's due to subjectivity. But if we keep, if we basically start, also looking for data, tracking data about emotional response from people, maybe we can also save time and resources and avoiding these multiple loop reviews. And here again, the matter is finding a balance between, looking for data and reminding ourselves that we are still dealing with people and the human values.
Yeah. My next question is you mentioned tools that make complex analytical concepts like more accessible. I'm curious about the organizational dynamics here. So, who should own user insights in a company? Have you seen success with like democratizing access to session replays and analytics across teams, or does this create chaos with everyone like drowning different conclusions and from the same data? Like, how do you approach this?
Yeah, also it's another great question because it's something that I'm dealing with. I think since I started working in this field, no, there is this. I think there are two different terms that are able to capture, the answer to your question. For me, there is a difference between evangelization and democratization, no, and I think that evangelizing the spreading of data and the use of these tools inside the company is gonna make a positive change, no? Because basically you are spreading the knowledge, across different teams. You are spreading, sharing different pieces of knowledge, and maybe there are people working in a different field, but they can, get some information that is gonna be useful for their product, and still, you are basically pushing people to rely on data and not just on subjectivity all the time to make a decision that are exactly informed by some analytics, and very likely those analytics indirectly are pertaining a user behavior. So in this way you are creating a positive loop where user behavior is taken into account. The product teams are making decisions that are, less biased but more data informed. And so, theoretically speaking, I mean, the idea is that okay, everyone can benefit from spreading of these tools. I'm not a huge fan of democratizing, research per se, because in my experience, I have seen, people that, they don't have the statistical rigor, and that's, it's not something that needs to sound intimidating, but, when there are people that are, spreading insight without, being fully knowledgeable about how to treat this insight, how to communicate this insight, the problem can be on the opposite side. So you are communicating, false trends or false or the information on the wrong side of the coin, and the results can be counterproductive in the long term. So I'm a huge fan of evangelization. I'm not fully convinced, on this word of democratizing, no, because in reality it's like asking a designer to be a developer, no. If you allow me for this metaphor, it's the same. I mean, for designers. So UX researcher should own, let's say, the process of collecting this data, and should, on the other side, helping the spreading of this data across the company. So should not work in a silos.
Yeah, this organizational question is so like important and often like overlooked, because on one hand it creates more empathy across teams when engineers and marketers could directly see user struggles and all the same analytics. On the other hand, without proper context, people sometimes jump to conclusions or become fixated on edge cases. So as you mentioned, you should keep the balance in here.
Yeah.
My next question, many product teams focus on point estimates like 80% of users completed onboarding. Why is it crucial to look beyond these single numbers and like consider the range provided by confidence intervals?
So the point that I was trying to highlight in my article is, often basically it's more a matter of how we communicate this inside the company. I think it's also well connected to the point about evangelizing, analytics across the company. So the way you are communicating this insight is really something. It's something really important. Confidence intervals, I think. Are one of the way to better communicate this inside about inside the company, And often what we do is, running a usability testing or watching at recording analytics from session replay, and we are interested to know a, a precise number that, for example, can be task completion on the error rate. And another example, a good example is A/B testing, very likely we want to compare two pieces of design, so design A and design B. So we are going to run a test and we discover that, okay, design B is performing at this dot percentage that is higher than design A. So the question here, should we say that design B is performing better than design A? Maybe is the answer, because first of all we should ask ourselves, is there really a statistical significance between the two design? Is this difference real? And one of the things that is not mentioned in this article, but maybe we are gonna get the opportunity to speak in the future, is that, okay, let's suppose that you are gonna run an hypothesis testing, so you basically understand there is a real difference, statistically speaking, between the two design. So the other point is, okay, are we interested in tracking these metrics on the sample size of the user, or as a company, as a product team, are we interested to know what will happen in the entire population? And this, one of the questions that confidence interval are trying to answer. So we are not, let's say, we are using the sample size as a proxy of the entire population, given certain characteristics. In the end, we want to know what will happen if the same prototype, the same piece of information would be used by the entire population. Confidence interval is one of our tools at our disposal that is going to tell us, okay, in which range possible values will move from a lower bound, that is the minimum value, till the upper bound. And also it's going to set better the expectation of your stakeholders, because one way is saying to your stakeholders, I'm expecting that this design will perform with a task completion of 80%. Another is going to say, okay, we expect that task completion would range possibly between a minimum value of dot percentage to a maximum value of a dot percentage. In this way, you are more statistically rigorous in a sense, and you are also better managing the expectation from your stakeholders, because possibly the management, after you share this insight, 80% of task completion, would expect that task completion in a real world would be the same. Instead, with the confidence interval, you are setting better the expectation, and you go beyond the single number. You are gonna look at possible values in which this your metric could possibly fly. And that's for me, it's really really important. Once you start communicating confidence intervals, also I have seen in my experience that people are getting more the message of your data, no? Because in the end, again, we are not interested to know what's happening with the sample size, but we're using the sample size to get the information, to predict an information on the overall population possibly. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that the message in the article.
So, as I understood it right, understanding the range gives us a better grasp of the data's reliability, which is like essential for informed decision making, right?
Yeah, I mean, it make your data more reliable. You are, basically considering all the possible outcomes because 80% is a single number, but 80% is a summarization basically coming from multiple data set, from multiple user. Instead with confidence interval, you are basically more realistic in the way you are communicating semantics and also the way you expect in the real time your product to behaving with their users. So that's I mean, grasp the concept, in a very
Mhm.
good way. So
Okay, yeah, that really like covered the question. My last question, Alessio, is like if we look beyond current like methodologies like session replay, usability testing, and traditional analytics, what do you see as the next frontier in understanding users? Are there like emerging approaches that excite you, for example, maybe AI, or perhaps like concern you in how they might transform product decision making?
yeah, I was expecting the question about AI. Also, I read an interesting article from Dr. Bhatt, if I'm not mistaken, and I know him from my previous experience at Microsoft. So AI is one of the topic that it's gonna be exciting and also it's gonna pose new question on how we are basically tracking data. uh, for example, I don't believe that the AI is gonna take the place of analyst or UX researcher, at least in the medium term. For sure AI is gonna give us a big boost in data calculation. It's gonna theoretically also making data analysis more accessible to people that at the beginning can be a bit intimidated by doing data analysis, because in reality when you are dealing with statistics you are dealing with formula and we are dealing with numbers. But AI, once you are fully aware of how to use this formula, how to use these statistics, can help you make the trivial part, in making the stuff for you. And on the other side is something that I also shared as a comment in the Bats article, is that it's gonna increase the responsibility as a designer in the way we are managing this tool, no? Because from we have now more powers from AI, but we need to be able to deal with these tools, no? Because very often, the AI is, can have hallucination, or it happens also to me many times that, even with formulas and, good prompts, AI was, giving me misleading output. So it's an opportunity, but also on the other hand is posing new question in terms of ethics and in terms of responsibility as a designer. Another, I think, interesting topic, for example, is the one about synthetic users or synthetic archetypes. No, how, for example, one day we can build predictive models that can be fed by new data in a continuous way, so that okay, we can predict, given a certain characteristic in the population, how this population would react to a certain output. And this can be applicable to, I think, physical and digital products. This is exciting. I think it's an opportunity, but here also it comes now the question about ethics, how much we can go far in collecting data from people behaviors, no? Also coming to your question about emotional response, can we build, archetype model that can predict the emotional response from people given a certain output? This, it's an open, I think, question mark. I don't have an answer yet, and this will very likely depends on how all the technology about AI will basically proceed. Another field of that I found it exciting is precisely the field about emotional response again. I think here there is a big opportunity. Uh, there is a lot of there are a lot of studies in psychology that are, for example, tracking emotional response in people behavior. Less studies, I think few studies that are, tracking, at least in digital experience, are tracking, emotional response from people when dealing with digital interfaces. I think here there is a big opportunity, especially today that we have, tools like the one provided by Usability or by the same AI that can boost our, horizon in applying, data analysis. And the fourth and last one, I think that, we are gonna see more development of tools like unmoderated testing in the future. So, for example, another topic that I'm exploring in my personal research, as with emotional response, we have seen less application of augmented reality for ethnographic research. No, so we cannot be physically there, but where can we still, understand people behavior by using tools like augmented reality? Here, I think there is again a huge gap, and maybe we are able to cover it better in the future. So those are, I think, the 4 or 5 topics that I find it really exciting.
Yeah, the potential of these like emerging technologies feels like simultaneously exciting and slightly unsettling. I'm like particularly interested in how we maintain human judgment and ethical considerations as these tools become more powerful, specifically AI. There is something like irreplaceable about human empathy and contextual understanding that I hope we don't lose as we adopt more sophisticated analysis methods. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's I mean, doing product analytics. I hope there is no one in. I'm joking, but there is no one in the audience that is working in physics or chemistry. I think that it's pretty difficult. Sometimes can be even more difficult than analyzing what's happening in physics, because in physics you have fixed rules, all the time.
yeah.
When we are dealing with people, there is always, a domain of unforeseen situation or uncontrollable events that, you can collect all the data that you want. But in the end, data need to be, treated by humans, need to be manipulated by humans. So data are just the tools, strong tools in our hands that, are helping us to be less subjective, less biased. But still, we need to remind ourselves that we're dealing with people all the time.
True. Thank you so much, Alessio. This has been an incredible conversation that's pushed beyond the surface level tactics into some like of the deeper questions facing product teams today. Your insights on balancing quantitative rigor with qualitative understanding, navigating like ethical considerations and making confident decisions have given us like much to reflect on. So, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us today and for your contributions to PITT. Do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I wanna thank you for your question and for our collaboration, and I'm really happy of this, initiative by user pilot, because it's an incredible form of for sharing knowledge or different opinions. It's not easy to find a forum like this, and I think it's opportunity of sharing different opinions, different to open discussion about the future of data analysis. And so again, thank you, because it was really interesting and engaging for me, and also pushed me to think about, also after the day after writing the articles, about, wording like data driven, data informed. So it pushed me to ask, new question, and maybe for future research.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alessio. I'm gonna leave you to head backstage for now. And to our audience, I highly recommend checking out Alessio's articles on the User Pilot PITT blog. I dropped the links in the chat so you can check them out there, where you will find these topics explored more deeply. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you at our next interview session. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.